Krishna Hare 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 Ram, Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare. It looks like I'm in a haze. Hold up. Let's see. Maybe it's the camera is fuzzy. Just light problems. Okay. So we ended last class talking about Prahlad Maharaj and how Krishna, in a sense, tempted him by asking him, whatever you want, you can ask for it. And he asked, please don't, I don't want to take any blessing from you, any benediction. And Sringadev said, no, please, I want to give it to you. And then he said, well, I would like the benediction that I would never ask for a benediction, anything material. And then he also asked if Lord Sringadev could liberate his father, which is a whole class in and of itself, or many classes. But we didn't elaborate on that. We could elaborate on that a little bit now. I believe this is of extreme importance. One of the huge challenges every human being faces, not just devotees, but every human being faces, is hatred and anger. And we all feel hatred and anger towards people or situations, countries, politics, other religions, your local government, your local temple. There's so many things that disturb us, right? And sometimes we just don't like somebody because they have a different opinion. Sometimes we don't like somebody because they have something that we've not achieved and we want it desperately and they have it. So anger and hatred are quite common. If you actually look at your life, you can see how common it is. You see someone on YouTube and it says something you disagree with, you might think, I hate that person. That's a stupid comment, right? Or how could they be so stupid to say that? Anyone who believes like that is a fool and an idiot. And because I tend to hate people who I don't agree with, then it might become hatred. So it's something we deal with all the time. And we're not even talking here about somebody committing violence. I mean, that's obvious. Someone like Prahlad Maharaj trying to kill him. I mean, how would you feel? We have issues with people just because they took our shoes. We put them in one place and they put them on the shelf somewhere, and it took us an extra 30 seconds to find them. And we're thinking, who is that nonsense devotee that moved my shoes? If I have a chance, to talk to him, I'll let him know, you don't touch my shoes, right? Ever again. Otherwise, there's going to be problems. So even, I don't think I'm exaggerating here. I think I'm just being realistic that this is what it's like. And so then we come to the point of someone like Prahlad Maharaj, whose father attempted to kill him. And as we mentioned last week, if a man is crazy and picks up a gun and shoots 10 people and kills himself, I mean, that's difficult enough because then your anger is generally directed towards his parents. Like, what kind of kid did you raise? How could you allow him to have a gun and so forth? Or to the police because that person said, a lot of these people put some message out. I'm going to be doing something. I'm going to be killing people. I'm going to be creating chaos somewhere. They put out these messages a lot of times after the event, you don't have this so often in your country, but in our country, it happens all the time. So after the event, they find out he put out messages that he was going to commit some violence. So, as we said, that's bad enough. But as we said last week, when it's a relative, what to speak of a parent, like that's unimaginable. So the point is, we often get upset, and our anger or hatred is triggered by something very small. And sometimes not even really by anything. It's just that I don't like this race of people. So when I see them, I just don't like them, or I become angry with them, or I want to eliminate that race of people from the planet. Although personally, I never had a problem with any of them, but there's a history of them, and I'm history of some of them committing violence against our community or people I love, and so now I hate all of them. And so just by seeing them, I'm triggered. So this happens. This happens all the time. And so I don't think it could get any worse than your parent killing you in terms of becoming angry, upset, revengeful, or just, totally distraught. So sometimes I say that, like with Prahlad Maharaj, that was child abuse beyond anything we've seen. I mean, we've seen some pretty bad things actually, but I think that's the worst. There is a description in Bhagavatam of, I'm not sure how many ways, maybe 11 ways in Bhagavatam, but I understand that is not all the ways that Hiranyakashipu tried to kill Prahlad. There are many more ways. So just, I think sometimes it's important when we read the Bhagavatam to try to imagine realistically what that would be like, putting ourselves in that situation. Like, could you imagine? Your parents are trying to kill you. Sometimes we see parents leave their children. They don't try to kill them, they just leave them. And how outraged we can be. How could my parents leave me? How could my father leave me or my mother neglect me? Right? Or sometimes the parents are violent with the children. How could we think, not even if the violence was committed to us, but we become aware of it, it's so we become angry, isn't it? How could, such a horrible parent, how could they do that? And if you see that parent, you would just feel anger towards them. So I think it's unimaginable what Prahlad Maharaj went through, or you could say what Thakur Haridas went through, or Jesus Christ went through. And obviously we can't imitate them because we don't have that heart. But there is an example there. And what is that example? Okay, let's look at it this way. I mean, we know what the example is. Prahlad Maharaj just had no enmity towards his father. He saw everything as Krishna's arrangement. And then as we learned that he wanted to bless his father. Of all the things he could ask Lord Nrsingadev, who could give him everything, he, good? Bart?
Totally inert.
Yeah.
You can't, even if people are talking, like,
Oh, yeah.
but in like a good way.
Yeah. So, it's good as when you read any story, nonfiction story, it's helpful to put yourself in that position or try to imagine that position happening to you. And then you can appreciate more the position of Prahlad Maharaj. So now we know Prahlad Maharaj is a great devotee, and we have other examples like Jesus, Thakur Haridas, Ambarisa Maharaj, Draupadi when her sons were killed. And we see this reaction, which is, it's not really a normal human reaction. It's a reaction of either they were never upset in the first place, taking it as, this is my karma, this is Krishna's arrangement, or Krishna's desire, or Krishna will protect. Like there's nothing negative coming. We saw that with Jesus Christ. He said, please forgive them. Thakur Haridas was praying for the people who were killing him, that they would not be killed because they couldn't kill him, and he feared, or maybe the Kazi will kill you because you can't kill me. So he was concerned about them. This is inconceivable. Same thing with Ambarish. Durvasa tried to kill him. When Durvasa asked for forgiveness, he said, yeah, no offense, no offense. Hare Krishna. Like we get offended because someone moved our shoes, or the devotee next to us got 2 sweet balls, we only got 1. We're ready to kill the server, take them to the GBC, hang them, right? And Durvasa tries to kill Ambarish, and he apologized and said, nothing to apologize. Like, inconceivable. Yes? Inconceivable, right? But, and here's an important point, but I think because they are pure devotees, we expect that that's how they would behave, right? Like if Prahlad Maharaj made up, if you want to make this a Hollywood movie, Prahlad Maharaj and, all his 5-year-old friends, they get together and they're all smart, and they figure out how to create Molotov cocktails and other weapons and bombs, and they blow up the kingdom of Hiranyakashipu and kill all the demons and take it over, That could have happened, but if he wasn't Prahlad Maharaj, that could have happened. Look at my father, he's trying to kill me. He's destroying the world. He's a demon. Let's destroy him. But isn't it a fact that because it's Prahlad Maharaj, because it's Ambarish, pure devotee, because it's Jesus Christ, because it's Thakur Haridas, because it's Draupadi, when they react that way, it's not so surprising. And in fact, that's what we expect. You're kind of like, well, how do you think, if you didn't know the story and we asked you, how do you think this devotee would react? You'd probably say, he probably forgave them. He probably tolerated it. He probably accepted it as his karma or Krishna's arrangement or something like that. That's what we would expect. Isn't it? You agree? Isn't it? That's what we would expect. So, now it comes down to us. So we might think, yeah, I would expect that of a great devotee, but I wouldn't expect that of myself because I'm a human, right? And I have human frailties, and you couldn't expect a human to react that way. However, I have multiple stories, because I had to study this for my forgiveness course. I have multiple stories in which people did react, like Prahlad, like Haridas Thakur, and so on. And they never blamed God for what happened, and they forgave that person, and they held no vengeance. Wow. Amazing. Now, the sad part of this, I think maybe we could call it the sad part, is that not every devotee would react the same way as these people acted. We're talking about 2 cases I read where the mother forgave the killer of her son. It was like gang violence. And her son was killed. The mother forgave the killer. Wow. And, another horrible story, a man's daughter was stabbed to death in his house by his daughter's boyfriend. Hare Krishna. And he came downstairs, and that's what he saw. Unimaginable. Who could even, survive that? He forgave. He, a black girl, just after segregation began, when all the white people, when she was going to a white school and all the white people were mocking her, calling her all kinds of names. You can imagine, a black girl, just after segregation began in America, in the south of the country where segregation was opposed. She's going to school, and she had to go to school with police escorts because they were afraid there would be violence. And these people saying, "You black this, you stupid," just every imaginable thing they could say to a 6-year-old girl on top of it. And under her breath, she was praying to God, and you know what she was saying? 6-year-old girl, she's saying, "God, please forgive them." Wow. Isn't that amazing? So it is possible to see Krishna's hand in this. It is possible to not be revengeful. It is possible not to exist with hatred. But it's definitely not human, and it's definitely not normal. Definitely goes against our conditioning. It's definitely not easy. But I would say not only can we do it, but as devotees, we're meant to do it. That's the hard part. And I think for many, many devotees, they don't think about this. And I've had to think about it because I spent months and months and months creating the forgiveness course and years teaching it. And this was an essential aspect of it, is our reaction to situations. And as I said before, a lot of the resentment devotees were coming in with was not ultimately on a scale of 1 to 10, with Prahlad being at 10, they were about at like 0.03 in terms of the severity of the offense, and holding on to it. And so one of the things I realized was that Krishna consciousness is the solution to this, but our personality type and our conditioning is so strong that the solution, the antidote, which is Krishna consciousness, may not even touch us. We may not even even think that we could ever or would ever want to forgive this person or not hate this person. It's like the conditioning is that bad. So it was it was an insight into human nature, that you might even find an atheist being more forgiving than a devotee, which is, doesn't make sense on paper. That's not what our Shastras say. It says the devotee has all good qualities, non-devotees don't. But when you talk about conditioning, and specifically in these areas, it's also an influence of our psychology. Some people are, they're more angry by nature. They're more rajasic. Their constitution, constitution is heat. Ayurveda people have hot constitutions are more angry. They're more angry people. So there are many, many factors. But it's essentially important to understand, well, if I'm trying to be a devotee, this is one of the things that a devotee does or should do, or one of the behaviors of a devotee. So what we generally, these are just, I'm not saying you are all guilty of this, but this is what I generally see. It seems like the mind can't focus on too many things, right? So for most devotees, they focus on getting their rounds done, trying their best to get their rounds done, trying their best to follow the 4 principles, trying their best to do some service, trying their best to read Prabhupada's books, and trying their best to control whatever anartha is tempting them to deviate. And it's kind of like the focus of every devotee, right? Isn't it? Got to get my rounds done today. Got to read, got to study, got to do my sadhana, have to do some service. And that's a mouthful, or that's the word, but we could say that's a bucketful just for one person, especially if that person is not so strong in Krishna consciousness. That could take a lot of energy. And so that's where the focus goes. And then so when we talk about things like this, for many, many devotees, it's not even on their list that I should be this way. Like that, like they don't notice it when they become angry or hateful or revengeful. It's so normal. We've been that way for so many lifetimes that I think many devotees, I don't think I've seen this, when it happens, they don't even notice it. Have you ever noticed that? It's very strange. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, you should control anger. Krishna tells us we should be forgiving. Krishna tells us we should be tolerant. Mahaprabhu says unless we're tolerant, we can't chant. Yudhishthira Maharaj is the perfection of tolerance. We have the verse Titikshava Karunika Surita Sarvadehinam. It's a verse describing a devotee. Suridam. He's tolerant, he's peaceful, he's friendly, like it's like everywhere. And then we have the stories that we're talking about with Prahlad and Ambarisa Maharaj and Haridas Thakur and Jesus Christ and Draupadi and others. And so it's like all there. But we're so conditioned, I believe, to think that revenge, anger, upset, and it's totally human, it's totally normal. That's just, I don't even think when it comes up that anything's wrong. I have studied, there's a certain class of devotees that has very ill feelings, probably rightly so, I don't want to say probably, rightly so because of history, towards a certain ethnic group. And practically all those devotees, if you ask them, what do you think about, they're like, oh, they're the worst. They're horrible. This and that. Yeah, it's interesting, right? You say another PhD paper, right? How, prejudice within a religious organization, or how would we say it? Converse qualities, the opposite of what the scripture teaches, how pervasive those qualities could be in the lives or consciousness of people within a religious organization. And so, okay, you're religious, therefore, love thy neighbor as thyself, and you have the commandments and we have our principles. So then naturally you would assume, okay, all members of this religious group would be that way. But we find social conditioning of many lifetimes, psychological conditioning, has huge effects on our ability to apply Krishna consciousness in every situation in the proper way. Isn't that interesting? It's quite sad, actually. But I was thinking this morning, okay, this is a reality. But whenever you confront this reality where your human nature is in conflict with what the examples of pure devotees, and those examples of pure devotees are the examples that we are meant to follow, whenever it's in conflict with those examples, that's a point. What would you call it? We'll call it a pain point. In advertising, they call them pain points. It's a point, where trying to sell a product and you say, well, what is the pain of not having the product, or what pain will this product relieve? So it's kind of a pain, you could call it a pain point as such in prayer, because when I recognize, or maybe some of you recognize from this class, yeah, I do have an issue with hatred or anger. I do have prejudice against certain classes of people. I am not equal. I am not Samadarshana. What to speak of Samadarshana? Samadarshana Yeah, that's easier than actually acting equal towards everyone. So I don't see people equally. There are people in my life towards whom I have issues. I have ill feelings. When we recognize this, or anything in any area of our life in which we're out of alignment from the actions of pure devotees, or the direct, or what pure bhakti is, that's a good place to pray. Krishna, help me with this, because this is like, what do you want help with? Krishna, give me, help me eat one sweet ball instead of two. That's not such a big thing that you really need to pray for that, right? This is a big thing, right? Because this is one of those, like, I don't know if could I ever come to a point where someone tried to kill me and I would just pray for them? Wow. Maybe I could forgive them, understanding maybe they had a difficult life or they lost their mind for a moment. But to bless them, to pray for their liberation. And yet, what Prabhupada ultimately wants from us is that we would be like that we would pray for the well-being of every living entity. We would make sacrifices to save them. We would sacrifice personal convenience to help other people spread Krishna consciousness. You can see it all in Prabhupada's example. And that's the example he wants us to follow. And you can see it all in the Sankirtan movement. It's full of sacrifice. You have to do things you don't want, at times you don't want, with people you'd rather not be with, and so on. And all trying to remain equipoised towards everyone, compassionate towards everyone, kind towards everyone, become their well-wisher, and so on. So that's definitely something to pray for, especially if you find that extremely difficult. So I think it's when you think about praying, you just look at these activities of pure devotees, and you see some of those activities, and you see this one, I really have difficulty with this. I cannot even imagine myself ever being like this. That's a sign I need to pray for that. When you say I could never imagine myself forgiving someone who did A, B, or C to me or my family or to my devotees. I could never imagine ever forgiving this race of people. Like if you're Jewish, maybe you could never forgive Hitler and the Nazis, and so I couldn't imagine forgiving them. And we don't forgive what they did. As individuals, we can forgive them. We don't. What they did obviously was horrifically wrong. But we could forgive the individual. Why would we do that? Because the heart of a devotee, the Vaishnava, is pure. He doesn't want to carry any revenge or hatred within his heart, because Krishna has to sit in our heart. And it's like you have an altar, and you clean the altar. Those of you who don't do deity worship, when we wake up the deities, we clean the altar. Like the whole altar is clean. And then after we do arti, we clean the altar. And then after we dress the deities, we clean the altar and the floor. Not just the altar. We wake up, we clean the altar, the floor. After every puja, after dressing the deities, we clean the floor as well. So after every arti, the altar is cleaned. It's cleaned after dressing, and it's cleaned when we wake up the deity. So that's like 8 times a day the altar is clean, right? And what if some devotee came in and threw dirt on the altar? Like, what are you doing? Krishna cannot sit in a dirty place. And so sometimes instead of cleaning our heart, we just pour dirt on it. It's like our heart is an altar. It's good to see your heart as an altar. And so when this hatred or envy or whatever comes in, the anger, the resentment, just, it's nice to have a visual that my heart is an altar and I'm pouring dirt or poison on the altar instead of cleaning it. So it's a nice visual. But the point is, the goal is to have a pure heart. So, the conditioned self says, why would I not be angry at this person? Look what they did to me. But the devotee's heart says, I'm a well-wisher of every living entity, as is Krishna a well-wisher, as is Prabhupada, as are all the acharyas, and I am meant to represent them. So even though by my human nature I may be low and angry and resentful and so forth, and spiteful, and I have a lot of hate within me, but because I am meant to represent my guru in the disciplic succession, then that's not allowed anymore. That's, and I often joke that when someone wants to become a devotee, if you gave them this lecture and the lecture ended, so if you want to be a devotee, this is what you have to be, we'd probably only get like 25%, because they'd all say, well, I don't want to do that, or I can't do that, or this is impossible, or it's beyond me. But it's essentially important to understand, to realize this is what it means to be a devotee, whether you like it or not. Well, I'll take the pakora and chutney part, I like the kirtans, but this like giving up, being equal and kind to people that have mistreated me, I don't like that part. I don't want that. Take that off my plate. I'm not going to eat it. So we don't realize these things or know these things generally when we first join, but there's this idea, and I don't think we could ever understate it, and I don't ever think we could talk too much about it. There's this idea that you can only give what you have. You can only influence another person by what you have. You can't, when you want to influence another person's nature or consciousness, you can't genuinely do it if you're trying to get them to achieve something that you yourself don't have. And this is why there was this controversy after Prabhupada left, when 11 devotees became gurus. And everybody was thinking guru means Uttama Adhikari, Mahabhagavat, because that's what Prabhupada was, and that's what Srila Bhaktisiddhanta was, and that's what Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and you just go through the disciplic succession. They're all Mahabhagavats, at least the prominent gurus, the ones that we knew and were focused on. And so, there were many gurus we didn't know about, may not have been Mahabhagavats, but we were focused on the Mahabhagavats. So our idea was they have to be Mahabhagavats. And so after Prabhupada left, and some of them had difficulty, he said, see, you can't be a guru if you're not Mahabhagavat, which traditionally makes sense. And the argument was, well, look, if you don't have love of God, how can you give it to somebody else, right? And that's there in Bhaktivinoda Thakur's teaching, If you're an Uttama Adhikari and you have prema, you can give prema. If you're a madhyam, you have faith, you can give faith. You can give what you have, you can't give more than you have, or to the degree that you're attached to Prabhupada, attached to your guru, you can give that. And so there was this controversy. Are these people qualified to be guru because they don't have prema? And so, and then the understanding was, well, Prabhupada has prema. So they're not acting independently of Prabhupada. They're connecting their disciples as badhyams. They're saying, okay, you can go as far as I am advanced, but if you want to go beyond me, then what do we do? Well, I have to become more advanced. Well, I'm as advanced as I can possibly be at this point, and that's not enough for you. I'm not at prema yet. How do I get prema? We are going to have to connect you to Prabhupada, who will give you that prema. So that resolved the controversy. It still hasn't resolved it, maybe in some people's minds, but it resolved the controversy that you don't have to be a Mahabhagavat to be a guru. You can be Madhyam, even Kanishna. But we are connecting you to Prabhupada. And so, like I have often said, you have access to Prabhupada in the same way that Prabhupada's disciples do. So anyway, So, where was I going with this point? I got on a tangent. Does anyone remember? Um,
You were saying that all the bodies, we should have those qualities. It doesn't matter which level are we in.
yeah, okay. Oh, yeah, I was making yeah, I remember now. Yeah. I was making the point that, like, we're making the point before that this is often overlooked because we're just focusing on, we'll just chant and follow the principles, everything will come. We're kind of, that's a paradigm which is philosophically backed up, but often misunderstood. It's like you have cancer and, someone says, if you go to the gym every day, you'll get healthy, which is true, right? Isn't it? Like if you, Hari Bhakti, if you went to the gym every day, then when I came to India in February, you look like Atlas, big muscles, you'd have energy. You do Govardhan Parikrama in like 4 hours, you'd be like powerhouse, right? And it's true, it's like, get out there, go to the gym, sweat it out, get on those bikes and those like ski machines and lift the weights and you'll be healthy. And it's true. But if you have cancer, that's not the only thing, right? You got healthy, but inside your body's dying. You'll get stronger temporarily. So I think it's like that, just do bhakti and everything will come. But that has been a problem for many devotees because then they don't focus on what we're talking about now. And so the original point I made is that in thinking about how Krishna consciousness spreads and thinking about how Krishna consciousness will spread, the statement that you can only give what you have is foundational to understanding how Krishna consciousness spreads. Because that means fundamentally that this movement can only be as successful in a macrocosmic way as we are in a microcosmic way. In other words, it can only be successful as an organization as we are individually successful as devotees, because we bring people into our sangha. And so the more we're Krishna conscious, the better the sangha, the more they will advance, because we're bringing people into a better sangha, a sangha of more advanced devotees. And you might say, well, what did you have in the beginning? You weren't very advanced. We at least had a full dedication to Prabhupada. And of course, we had Prabhupada, who was the most advanced. But by being fully dedicated to Prabhupada, I would say we were acting as pure devotees. We were acting like advanced devotees because we had Prabhupada so much in our heart and his will so much in our heart that it had such a positive effect on people and people joined. So it's not like I'm saying we have to wait for 30 years before you become pure devotees or more pure. It can happen now. But the point is, we can only influence people to the degree that we are influenced, right? Like, how can you teach somebody to do something that, 100 times better than you can do it? Like, you're going to teach me how to cook. You can only teach me how to cook what you know how to cook, right? I'm going to teach you my favorite preparation. And you show me and I eat it and I go, this is not very good. Well, this is how I make it. This is how I know. Right. Well, that's, what you know is not that great. I've tasted better before. So, yeah. So we should underplay, when we hear Lord Thakur Haridas, Prahlad Maharaj, yeah, so advanced, I can never be like him. And then, that's the end of it. I just, we throw that story in the bucket and it's like, hey, forget that. I could never be like him. And, we talk about all these things like, don't hate anyone and don't be revengeful. Yeah, not for me. And forget that. That's beyond who I am. No, this is where we're meant to go. And this is how we will be successful in spreading Krishna consciousness. And you are all spreading Krishna consciousness just when you go out anywhere, just by your presence, by your vibration. And so, you could imagine if we all had prema, just, you just go to the doctor's office and the doctor starts crying and rolling on the floor. He doesn't know what's happening. And because prema is emanating from your heart, something's happening, right? Well, it's like that to some degree. I mean, obviously there are people who met Prabhupada and nothing happened. That's of course there. But you read in Chaitanya Charitamrita how those who saw Mahaprabhu got prema, and then those who saw them got prema, and then those who saw them. It's like the original multi-level marketing. And they didn't have to do anything other than just exist, and by their existence, people got prema. Right? So I will never be able to underemphasize this point, and I will never be able to not overemphasize this point, that Krishna consciousness spreads because of our Krishna consciousness. So when we read these stories like Prahlad Maharaj, and we say, I'm full of anger, I'm full of hatred, I can't relate to this. We should think, okay, red flag, that's a problem. We shouldn't think, well, I'm just a conditioned human being. What do you expect from me? Well, if that's what you say, I would expect another life. I would expect many lives until you become that pure devotee. Because when you say, what do you expect from me? Really what you're saying realistically is, well, not this lifetime, maybe the next. Maybe I'll be better in the next life. Maybe the next, maybe the next. So is that what you want to say? I hope not. But that's what you're saying. Not for me, I could never be like this. Okay. See you in the next life, Prabhu, Mataji. Yeah, that's what we're saying. So, in other words, when we hear the story of Prahlad Maharaj, we should think, okay, this is what by becoming a devotee, this is what I signed up for, to follow in the footsteps, Mahajana Yena Kata Sapanta. It's there in the Mahabharata. The Mahabharata says that, like, different sadhus have different ideas, different philosophies, and you can't be a great philosopher unless you have a new philosophy, right? Isn't it? Isn't that how you make it? You write a book about something that no one's ever written about, and it's like, wow, read this book. Now you're on all the podcasts because you're talking about something no one has talked about. And so that's even true in the days of yore of philosophy. Everyone's trying to be a greater philosopher with a new twist on the Vedas or a new twist on something. And so Mahabharata says, no, it doesn't work. It's not the way you're going to do it. Mahajana Jnana Kata Sapanta. You should follow. The way it works is you follow the path of the Mahajans, the great. Those are the people. That's how you learn, by their example. So, if we minimize the example of these great devotees by saying, well, I'm just human, I can't be that way, then where's the Mahajana Yena Kata Sapanta? Where is following the Mahajans? Okay, we understand maybe we can't be like Prahlad. Can you be a little more like him? Please be a little more like Prahlad. Can you try? Of course. Maybe next year you can be a little more, and next year you can be a little more. The point is you can't relegate it to I'm just human, and I chant my rounds, and maybe I chant my rounds, so maybe someday I'll be like him. Maybe, yeah, maybe no. That depends because this may sound strange, but we could resist becoming pure, and it could be resisted in different ways. So I may be chanting, but subconsciously I'm resisting being a pure devotee. Like the thought of being a pure devotee is like, oh my God, if I'm a pure devotee, then what? Then I'm going to like all the people I hate. I don't know if I'm ready for that. I've been hating them since I was in the womb, and now I become a pure devotee. I'm going to like these people. My whole family hates them. My whole community hates them. I'll be the only one who doesn't hate them. I don't know. I don't know if I'm ready for that. This Prabhu, 20 years ago did this to me. I don't know if I'm ready to let it go. So I'm chanting Hare Krishna to be pure. Internally, I may be thinking, no, I'm not ready for this. So I'm like resisting. It's like I have the parking brake on. The car's moving forward, but I have the parking brake on. So it's, Ever felt like that? And if you don't know if you felt like that, I can give you the answer and say, yes, you have. And that's even more of a problem that you don't know it. So now that you know you have, you might start thinking, okay, well, in what ways have I done that? I'm not even, because it can be subtle. I don't even realize it. So and then you could pray, Krishna, if I have resistance, let me know, because I'm so dull, I don't even know it. But if you ever say, I could never be that way, you may mean, and not be conscious of it, that I don't want to be that way. That's what you could mean. It's possible. Tako pratishta shute avibhina. There's the verse. Chavitir yasya matam nabinam dhamasya tattam hitam guhaya mahajanayena kata sapanta. Yeah. So, yeah. I'm trying to make the point that we can't escape this. And we can't use, well, I chant Hare Krishna, so no need to worry about these things. Yeah, so you're chanting Hare Krishna, you're not worrying about these things, but perhaps you're resisting, internally you're resisting coming to that stage of bhakti. So, you're chanting, but the car's moving, but the parking brake's on. So it's not going very fast, if at all. You ever drive your car with the parking brake? And it's like, what's wrong? And, you're pressing the gas pedal and you're going like 3 miles an hour. Yeah. So you're chanting these amazing rounds, but internally you're resisting where the chanting is meant to take you, and maintaining material attachment. I'm attached to hating this group of people. I'm attached to being revengeful. I'm attached to my anger. Yeah, it could be, right? You ever get attached to your anger? You don't want to give it up? Wow, isn't it? To maintain material attachment. So we could be chanting, maintaining material attachment of our anger or resentment, whatever it is. So my point is that when we understand and when we accept that pure Krishna consciousness means Samadarshana, we're equal to everyone. Samatattvam, it's in the Bhagavad Gita, equal poised and equal vision, equal Suridam Sarvabhutanam, friend to everyone. What does a friend to everyone mean? It means you're equal to all. Like this is what it means. So at least we should understand and work on it and start to catch ourselves when we see signs that we're not equal, signs that we're not forgiving, when signs of hatred towards someone, simply because they don't agree with us. This is like human nature at its worst, isn't it? You don't agree. I don't like you. Why? Because you have a different opinion than mine. In fact, if I'm a certain kind of person, I may want to just eliminate you from the planet because I don't like you. I don't like what you believe. Or you don't like me, let's eliminate you. I don't need any opposition. So, if I eliminate you, I have no opposition. So, that's conditioned nature. I'm not saying you feel that way, but that's at the heart of this. Just like, if I asked you right now, could you give me a list of people you wish were dead? And you're going to say, you're going to say, no, I'm a devotee. No, you could, isn't it? You could. Probably, you could spend the whole day making the list. Probably every leader of every country would be on your list, right? And that teacher in high school that like completely embarrassed you in front of class, yeah, like you can be on the list also. And So if you think about that, if you do have such a list, or maybe, okay, let's make another list. Maybe a list of people who hurt you that you would like to see something bad happen to, just, so they get a taste, as we say, taste of their own medicine. Like if you think like this and think, oh my God, I actually do. That's sad. But we need to be aware of these things, because to be a devotee means well-wisher of all living entities. Always a well-wisher. I've told stories before about devotees who turned their back on Prabhupada, disobeyed him in strong ways, disavowed him, disbelieved in him, so many things. And Prabhupada never had any ill feelings towards those people and those devotees. And when they wanted to come back, they were always accepted with open arms. There are many, many stories like that. That's what it means to be a devotee, somehow or other. And what do we see in our organization? What do we see amongst devotees? We don't always see this. Sometimes we see the opposite, isn't it? Maybe externally, etiquette-wise, yes, Prabhu, my respects. But internally, maybe not respectful. I know I should respect you, so I'm going to. But if you could just disappear, well, I don't want to kill you. Could you just go back to Godhead, and then I don't have to deal with you? My life would be better. Yeah, well, that's our human conditioned nature. Okay, that's my introduction for today's class, because we didn't have time to talk about Prahlad Maharaj. So now we can begin reading, because we have to read what Prabhupada said, because his words are saving us. Oh, I was listening. Guess what came up on my feed? This devotee named Mahatma Das came up on my feed, so I thought I'd listen to what he had to say. And he said something I really liked. He said, isn't it nice to have somebody rooting for you? Like someone behind you is always, yes, Daniela, you can do it. Yes, Hari Bhakti, you can do it. Yes, Priyanka, you can do it. Yes, Malika, Malati, I'm there behind you. I'm supporting you. Isn't it nice to have someone like that? Like in your life, even just one person? And I was saying, Prabhupada's books, he's rooting for you. You go to Prabhupada's books, that's where you get that. You have this person rooting for you so much that he was willing to write 80 volumes of books just to support you. He's behind you. Isn't that nice? Yes? So you have someone rooting for you, not just in his instruction, but in his prayers. And then you have Krishna willing to 10 times whatever you do. Right, which if you do something negative, I hope he doesn't 10 times that. But that could be, who knows? Be careful. But 10 times the positive. So we have so much behind us. Prabhupada willing to forgive us, always support us. Prabhupada's, no matter what we do, you can come back and take shelter of Prabhupada and say, yes, I accept you. Wow. Like, what's better than that? And I am rooting for you. I am your ever well-wisher. I'm for you. I'm behind you, 100%. So that's why Prabhupada's books are so important, because he's supporting us, not only in his words, but what's important. This is really beautiful to understand this. We read Prabhupada's words, but what do you think was Prabhupada's mood when he was writing those words? What was he thinking? He was thinking of us, thinking of my job is to help my disciples and future generations of disciples of my disciples, grand disciples, great grand, and so forth. I want them all to be Krishna conscious. I want them all to go back to Godhead. So it's not just Prabhupada's words that that are there in his books, but it's also, you can also pick up on this feeling that he's sitting there in his room translating, and this is what's in his heart. And you can feel that. And to feel that is to feel his support, that I want you to go back to Godhead. Isn't that beautiful just to think Prabhupada wants you to go back to Godhead? He's praying for you. He's behind you. He's always there to catch you. If you fall, he's always there to accept you. If you slipped out of his catching you, slipped out of his arms and you fall, he's always there to pick you up if you want to be picked up. Isn't that nice to know? In other words, you have no reason to fail because you have someone who's got your back. And I think that's a beautiful way to look at Prabhupada's books. Okay, so now that we've laid the foundation, we can read. You can put in chat the next quote. And we've got an ad for the Rasa retreat. If you're not going there, I'll never talk to you again. Okay, that should get you there, right? Okay. But Prabhu, I don't have any money. Pray to Radharani. The best way to get to Vrindavan is pray to Radharani. There's so many devotees like wanted to go to Vrindavan, they didn't have money. And then like, a week later, their friend says, I'm going to Vrindavan and I just got this tax refund. I'll buy your ticket. I mean, this is not like one-off. This happens all the time. It really does. And so you can't go to Vrindavan without Radharani's mercy, but you can pray to her for her mercy. That she'll take you, she'll help you. Yeah. So this is from Adi 13:24. I titled this Real Wealth as the Lord's Lotus Feet. If Lord Krishna is very pleased with a devotee, he takes away his material property, as he states in Srimad Bhagavatam 10:88. Yasyaham anugranami parishe tadhanam shalai. To show special favor to a devotee, I take away all his material property. Similarly, well, for a lot of us, we had no material property, so it was already taken away. If you say, Krishna never took it away from me, it's, well, you probably didn't have any in the first place. To show special favor to a devotee, I take away all his material property. Similarly, Narottam Das Thakur says, Dana Mora Thananda Radha Krishna Sicharan. She more Pranadhan Punudun Pranadun. Yeah. Dun more Nithanand Radha Krishna Sicharan. Say more Pradhan. Now I'm a real Bengali. Have any Bengalis here? Because if we do, you should chant it, not me. My real riches are Nityananda Prabhu and the lotus feet of Sri Radha and Krishna. He further prays, O Lord, kindly give me this opulence. I do not want anything but your lotus feet as my property. Srila Narottam Das Thakur has sung in many places. Srila Narottam Das Thakur has sung in many places that his real property is the lotus feet of Radha and Krishna. Oh, unfortunately, we are interested in unreal property and are neglecting our real property. Dhane jutan kori dhan tyaginu. So, okay. So what Prabhupada is essentially saying in this purport is that for a devotee should, well, a pure devotee does feel that the real property is the lotus feet of Krishna. That's what's valuable. Those on the path should feel that way or cultivating that feeling. And, in material conditioned life, we value things, We have this bumper sticker in America. It said, "The one who dies with the most toys wins." So that's like the mantra of materialism, accumulation. Whoever has accumulated the most wins. That's the name of the game, accumulation, isn't it? I have a vacation house in this place. I have a mansion in this place. I have a yacht in this place. Just I have a property here. Accumulation. I've got, when you get really wealthy, you can buy like 30 expensive cars. Jaguar, Lamborghini, Bentley, Ferrari. Now these cars, some of these cars are, above $200,000, more expensive than a house. So that's the name of the game. And so then we think, oh no, Krishna's going to take away my property. This verse from Bhagavatam says that. And we've all heard this verse. It's like, oh, my big fear. What if I surrender? My bank balance, if I surrender, my bank balance will go to zero. Yeah, but it might go to zero, but 10 years from now, Krishna may put a one and a bunch of zeros in front of it also, when you realize that your real property, the real value, is his feet. So what this verse is saying is, if you don't realize that, Krishna may take it away, so you realize it. So, Krishna took everything away. I had to take shelter at his feet, and now I'm happy. I'm more Krishna conscious than I ever was, and now I realize my real wealth is his feet. If you already realize that, he doesn't have to take it away unless it's some obstacle in some way for you. That's the point. He could also give it if you can use it in service, as he did with Prabhupada. Took it away because it was an obstacle. Prabhupada left home. He spread Krishna consciousness, and Prabhupada gave him everything. But this is the point. The lotus feet is the real wealth, isn't it? And if you sacrifice those lotus feet for material wealth, then you're number one fool and your life is wasted. And if Krishna has to take something away, so you take more shelter at his feet, then so be it. That will make you actually much happier than whatever property you have. And so here we see Nityananda Prabhu is praying, so give me this opulence. We all want opulence. What kind of opulence do you want? What do you want? What do you want? I want the lotus feet of Nityananda. That's what I want. So that's the idea, that we should pray that way. The real opulence, the Lord's lotus feet. That's what I want. Okay. And we have some comments. Corina says, I've definitely felt that unconscious resistance. The opportunity to be pure is there. Yeah. So you could say that, one of the goals of Krishna consciousness, one of the things we're trying to do, is remove all the resistance to being pure devotees, because any resistance we have to being a pure devotee is just an anartha, is some sort of anartha, right? What is that resistance? I don't know what it is for you. Sometimes the resistance is subtle, and it's, what if I become pure devotee, then what if this happens or that happens, or what if I actually have to surrender or do this or that? So all that internal resistance is a contamination, and all that internal resistance needs to be removed, at least gradually. At least we need to be aware of it, and we need to work on it. And of course, you can't just remove it. You have to advance, but you have to be aware, because when you're aware of it, then you realize, oh, this is not good for me. And then you develop a motivation, right, to get rid of it. If you realize something is bad for you, if you realize you're spreading dirt all over the altar of your heart, it's going to be easier to give up than if I just say, you have to give this up. But you have to see how it's harmful, how it's contaminating. And we have a comment from Bhaktivatsala. I'm conscious of my computers chanting and playing. My radio can't chant on Japa Mala due to serious hand tremors, so impersonally chanting 24/7 online. Jai. Hare Krishna. Victoria asks a question. My mind understands what you say about forgiveness, but I can't accept it. I don't have a list of people who I want to die, but I have a person who I want to suffer a lot. For many years, I can't forget what that person did, what I passed through. No any words like it. It was my karma. I deserved it. The negative situation turned into good for me. I need to forgive and pray for that person. Forgiveness is important for myself. All these things don't help me to forgive and to leave this in the past because you're getting something from your forgiveness. But what are you getting from it? Nothing works with me. I just want that person to suffer and really hope that he will suffer one day. Death is a very easy way for him to pay for his actions. Okay, so Victoria, what verse is that? You have a verse for that to support that way of thinking? I have a lot of verses to support not thinking that way, right? Now you're trying to be a devotee, right? So you don't have to play God. There is universal justice, right? So if someone has committed some sin, they will suffer for that. If they have not atoned for that and so forth, they will suffer. So here's a very easy way to forgive. Let's just forget that person, Victoria. Don't even worry about them. And let's focus on what you're feeling right now. You're feeling a lot of hatred, right? Forget who the hatred is for. Just focus on the hatred. You're feeling hatred, or as you described, whatever you're feeling, focus on that feeling. And forget the person. It's not for that person, just what you're feeling, right? Revenge, hatred, anger. Focus on those feelings. None of those feelings are helpful for you, obviously. And all of those feelings are bad for you, detrimental. Even, not even spiritually speaking, just emotionally and physically, they're bad, right? Would it be good for you? Would you be happy if you didn't have those feelings? Of course. Yes, right? Yeah, okay. So now focus on how giving up those feelings will be good for you. Forget the person. They don't, just imagine that person doesn't exist. Let them just go. Let them do what they want. Krishna will take care of them. You don't have to worry about them. Now focus on your feelings. Those feelings are not hurting them. It's hurting you. These feelings are not helpful for your bhakti, right? And those feelings that you have towards them are connected with your own conditioning, with your own needs, with your own inability to process the situation in a way that could free you. So we don't even have to go that this is my karma or whatever, what's Krishna teaching, you could do that, but we don't even have to go there. We just want to focus on how this is hurting me right now. I am hurting myself by allowing myself to hold on to this. And if I love myself, if I care for myself, if I want to do the best thing for myself, I will let it go. So take all those feelings, right, in your mind, take all those feelings, and imagine you put all those feelings into a jar, and those feelings are liquid, right? So you have all that hatred, anger, revenge. It's out of your heart now. It's in this jar. You're just taking it out. You put it in this jar, right? And you've taken this jar into the toilet and you've poured it out. All the revenge, anger, hatred, whatever it is, you just poured it out. You flush the toilet. How do you feel? Or how would you feel? Well, what a relief. It's all gone. I don't have to worry about that person. and all those feelings are gone. This is so powerful. It's not about the person, forget them. It's right now it's about my reaction to what happened, and it's sitting in my heart, and that person might be happy and, whatever. My resentment towards them is not affecting them. It's affecting me. And Chaitanya Dasi, can you put the link for the forgiveness course on the if you haven't taken the course, I think you've taken it, no? You haven't. Oh yeah, just take the intensive course. It'll be one of the most transforming things you ever do. I don't know if you all know, but that forgiveness course is probably the most transforming course we have. It's amazing. It just where it takes you in your heart and mind. And what it requires of us to be able to forgive somebody, it requires so much. It makes it's like this one man said, he said, even if you don't want to be rich, I suggest you be rich, because in order to be rich, you have to grow to another level. You have to be a different person. So, of course, a lot of us are Brahmins, we're not interested in being rich. But the point is well taken, that if you wanted to become a millionaire, and you're not yet a millionaire, you'd have to be a different person than you are now. You'd have to grow in many ways, in determination and tolerance, in intelligence and stamina and work ethic and so on. So it's like that to forgive. In order to forgive, you have to grow in so many ways. It's such a good thing to do. You have to be willing to let it go. Wow, that's a big level of detachment, isn't it? You have to be willing to accept this as some arrangement karmically. That's a big thing. Sometimes it's really difficult to understand that. I have to be willing, perhaps, to see this person who's, have their own issues. And really, and I have to be so self-loving and caring that I can flush this all down the toilet. Just let it go. I have to care about myself that much. So we have to grow so much. I even tell people, if you don't have a resentment issue, you should take the forgiveness course. Just make up an issue like you had it, just so you can do all the processes. It will enable you to let go of resentment, and it will enable you, and it will protect you the rest of your life from ever again in your life having any issue of resentment. You'll be like wearing a raincoat. You get in the house, you take it off, you're dry. The world will rain on you with hatred and mistreatment, and you'll have a resentment raincoat. You won't even feel it. The course is so powerful. So any of you who haven't taken it, I would just take it. I recorded in India, I recorded a foundational course, and just basic principles. And some devotees, I invited them, or some devotees said, can we come while you're recording? And I was just speaking, the basic principles. And they all said, that was amazing. Those basic principles were life-changing. So it's really, really important. And to Victoria and to all of you, Prabhupada said forgiveness is the primary quality of a Brahmin and a Vaishnava. It's the foremost quality of a devotee. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur said, listen to this, Victoria, this hopefully will inspire you. Bhaktivinoda Thakur said that bhakti is composed of three things. You need these three things. If you don't have these, you don't have bhakti. Humility, compassion, and forgiveness. Those three things. And he said if you have humility and compassion and you mix them together, they produce forgiveness. Because compassion means I don't want to hurt anybody. Humility means I don't want to hurt anybody on my account, because of me, and you mix them together, you get forgiveness. Isn't that beautiful? And that's what bhakti is made of. So forgiving is important because it's an essential ingredient to bhakti. And if you let it go, and you can let it go, and don't tell yourself you can't, you can. If you say, I don't know how, it could mean that you don't want to. That you haven't opened a space in your mind and heart for it. But there's a space, you can do it. Everyone who takes the course does it. So it's possible. And I think the most beautiful thing about the course is it insulates you. And so, like sometimes someone will do something towards me, which was someone. Sometimes devotees have done things towards me which are like horrible. And people would, and I didn't, I didn't react. I didn't allow myself to get upset. And people sometimes would ask, devotees would ask, why? Why didn't you get, how is it you're not upset? And basically my feeling was, I have better things to do with my mind and heart than focus on that. Isn't it? Like, that's what I want to focus on. I want to focus on my bhakti. I want to focus on my service. And this is not helping. This is not something I want to focus on. And I was just telling this to a godbrother the other day. He was out preaching and having good response, and he's not always out preaching. I was saying, whatever else you're focusing on that's getting in the way of preaching, then just just drop it. Like it's not helpful. Because he doesn't go out as much as he could because he's focused on other things, but he's really good at making friends with people and bringing them to Krishna consciousness. So, why focus? He sometimes will focus on like what's wrong with ISKCON. And I would say, well, why focus on that? You should focus on the preaching, because if you focus on that, then that occupies your consciousness and it discourages you as well. And Victoria, anything you focus on that's negative will have a negative effect on you. That's obvious. It will be upsetting. Sometimes it's subtle, you don't realize it. Sometimes you do realize it. It will be upsetting, discouraging, frustrating, and so forth. And it'll just, one of the things I realized in teaching this course is that resentment connects us to the mode of ignorance, because that's what it is. Anger is ignorance. And so then, like, we should think, why would I want to be connected to either passion or ignorance? So a lot of times we're feeling envy or anger or hatred or whatever it is we're feeling that's tamasic. And so we think, well, maybe these feelings are innocent. But I don't think we should ever feel that they're innocent, because they're symptoms of passion and usually ignorance. So they bind us. As soon as I have those emotions, I'm bound to ignorance, and then it manifests, right? Discouragement, anger, upset, and so forth. So, so when the devotees would say, why you're not upset about this or that, it was also a question of self-care. If I really care about myself, if I want the best for myself, would I allow myself to focus on something that's disturbing? Would I allow myself to get riled up and revengeful? And the answer is no. Most people do, because most people are not caring enough. But when you're more caring, you'll realize, oh, if I focus on this, it absolutely has no benefit for me. And it has 100%, it will be 100% detrimental to my well-being. Why would I focus on it? And the only answer I could give as to why I would focus on it is because I'm being bound by the mode of ignorance. That's the only answer. It's the mode of ignorance that's impelling me to retaliate, to not give it up. But if I introduce sufficient self-care, then let's just pull this out, put it in a jar, pour that jar out, it's gone. Wow, if you do that, maybe you already did that, Victoria, maybe you have to do, maybe there's some more in there you can do. you will have emotional experience of that. You know how you know you've done it? You will have an emotional experience of feeling lighter. You will actually feel lighter. You will feel an energy, a very heavy, dark energy lift you because there's a mode of ignorance that's connected with that. And I've seen this. I've done this workshop like 50 times, and I could see it in the faces of devotees. I could see it in the aura of their body. And I don't know how to see auras, but I could see their body became lighter when they forgave. They would come up one by one and say, I've forgiven. And you could see like years and years of darkness just left. And they all felt lighter. This is, I'm not like a psychologist or, new age energy frequency, I don't know much about that stuff. All I'm saying is, this is my personal experience. When I forgave, there was a lightness there, like something left. And it created space for good things to come in. That darkness was like keeping good things out. Energetically, I felt lighter. I felt like something left me. Like when you feel foggy brain, you're tired, you ate too many chapatis. I felt like that just cleared up out of my whole body. Like there was a fog in my whole body and it cleared up. And I've seen that hundreds and hundreds of times. So we have, but take the course no matter what, even if you feel that you've let it go. You should all take it if you haven't. And then I have created a teacher training course so that you can all learn to teach it if you like. And I think I mentioned to you in the Disciples course that one of the things we want to do is train you, any of you who want to teach, train you to teach, and then begin teaching children, because that's the easiest. And children are forgiving, you can make all your mistakes. And you teach children, of course, they need it as well. It's such a blessing because I'm just teaching adults, but I think children can understand these things if put in proper language. Teach them the same things, because don't you wish you learned about self-care when you were like 8 years old and forgiveness when you were 8 years old? That would have been great, right? And how to chant japa well, yeah. So we can organize, online classes for children, and then you can learn how to teach these things and you can teach them. And when you feel confident, you can teach adults. And it's people will appreciate it. So we have a question from Ray. At the beginning of the class, you talked about the forgiveness that we must give to those who have harmed us in some way. This point brings me confusion. Let me explain. I had 2 employees who betrayed me, stole things, information, and clients. I recently met one of them on the street and he didn't want to greet me. The other person is a sister and she is currently planning how to harm me even after 20 years of stopping working for me. So how can I forgive someone who helps me and then steals from me, lied to me, and still wants to harm me today? All this is incomprehensible. I think I've answered that question already, but you don't have to forgive what they've done. You don't have to condone what they've done. But if you don't forgive them, you will suffer. Now, if you want to remain connected with a mode of ignorance and suffer, that's definitely a choice, but you have a choice to forgive. And you forgive because this is what Krishna wants you to do. So let's make it really simple for Ray and for Victoria and anyone who needs to hear it. Let's make it really simple. Krishna wants you to forgive. That's why you should do it. Because you're a devotee and your life is dedicated to giving the pleasure to Krishna. You don't actually need any other reason. You don't need any other motive other than that Krishna wants you to forgive. That's all you need if you're actually a devotee, deeply, if you're a devotee. Yeah, I don't want to say a pure devotee or a great devotee, but if you're actually a devotee, 100% devotee, then your life means I will do what pleases Krishna. And Krishna is asking you to forgive them. Doesn't mean you can't take them to court. It doesn't mean you have to talk to them or ever see them. But you don't have to throw arrows, you don't have to throw darts at their picture every day. You don't have to retaliate, because that is only going to ruin your bhakti. So it's not about them, it's about your bhakti. Krishna will take care of them, their karma will take care of them. You don't have to play God, you don't have to do that. You can do whatever you need to do to protect yourself financially, physically. But if you want to protect yourself emotionally, you have to let it go from your heart. Otherwise, you will die with that hatred in your heart. Now, just think about that, Ray. Do you want to imagine the doctor told you you have a week to live, and this is still in your heart. Do you want to die with this in your heart? Of course not. But the fact is that if we don't let it go, it will follow us to our deathbed, and we'll be sitting on our deathbed with revenge in our heart. And we'll come back, and in our next life, you may end up marrying that employee, and you'll be enemies of one another, and you'll have that happens. Sometimes enemies marry. It's a karmic thing. So you just want to be careful not to have enemies, because these are the things that keep us in the world. If you want to go back to Godhead in the light of of your journey for unlimited time, from time immemorial, you've been in the material world, and you want to go back to Godhead, you don't want to allow this one event to keep you here, right? Another life after unlimited lifetimes. So if you put it in context, this event starts to become less significant, because if this is the event that's going to keep me in the material world, forget it, right? Does that make sense? Like, why? It's, how many of these events have I had in past lifetimes? Maybe that's why I'm still here, because I haven't forgiven. But, come back and take another birth, and these people will come back and harass you, maybe become your father or mother, or sometimes karmically, these people become our children, and they're born with diseases, and we spend our whole life spending all our money and taking care of them. I mean, you never know. So, anyway, I hope that helps. And we have one more message, 2 more, 3 more, 4 more, 5 more. Well, Ekaterina. I was thinking about what you said about Prahlad Maharaj, that he was a well-wisher of his father and didn't become angry at all. You mentioned that this is also possible for us to do. How can we move from not reacting out of anger and letting anger go to not being angry at all? I think we've answered it, but Prabhupada says, anger is not something you can always give up, but you can redirect it. So, when I forgave a devotee, you know who I became angry with after I forgave him? I became angry with myself for not forgiving him, for holding on 18 years. I think it was 18 years I had resentment towards him. And when I finally let it go, I had this huge realization that if I were more compassionate, or if I were more mature, if I were different, I wouldn't even have had the resentment in the first place. And I couldn't realize that until I let it go. So I was more upset with myself than I was with him. But if you want to direct your anger, you can direct your anger towards the sin the person committed. So this is, and how would that help you? By solidifying in your heart that you would never do that to another person. I'm angry at the sin. I was cheated. This person did this. That is wrong. That's sinful. It's unjust. We don't want to tolerate dishonesty and so forth. But I forgive the person, but the principle, I'm angry at the principle of dishonesty, injustice, and so forth. And therefore, I vow or commit to never cheat, to never turn against my sister, to never ever cheat an employee like that. So you can do it like that. Like, you ever see somebody do something wrong, or have you ever been mistreated, and then you thought, that hurt me so much, I would never do that. I could never, knowing how much I was affected by the way this person treated me, I would never do that to another person. So you can learn from that. Have you ever had that experience? or you've seen another person mistreated and you think, I would never treat anybody like that. Yeah, so that's good. The point is, sometimes anger can be used, sometimes it can't. But our emotional state, we always want to be in an emotional, we always want to process things emotionally in a way that's favorable for our bhakti. That's the point. So if you're processing something and it's unfavorable for your bhakti, with the excuse I'm just human, fine, you'll get another human birth. Congratulations, you know, what have you learned in this life, right? So, but if you think of things in a Krishna conscious context, then my goal is to go back home, back to Godhead, all of a sudden it's much easier. Like, oh, okay, I'm reacting this way, but this is simply the mode of ignorance, and I'm meant to be sattvic. So I need to learn how to be sattvic in this situation. That's my goal. So I'm not going to allow this one little event that happened in this one lifetime of millions of lifetimes in the space of, you know, the little small time of this life to be the cause of me taking birth and death again. So, you know, that can help you go from this is such a big thing I can't give up to like, oh yeah, this is the thing that's keeping me in the material world. So you go to Krishna, you're going to the Vaikuntha gates, and Krishna says, well, I can't let you in unless you forgive this person. And then you say, nah, I can't forgive them. Of course you wouldn't say that, right? Would you? I hope not. Would you? So think of it like that. You're at Vaikuntha gates and Krishna's asking you, well, we'll let you in, but you have to forgive, you know, your sister. Let me think about it. I don't know. And Krishna's saying, you know, it's really nice up here. It's way better than taking another birth, and all you have to pay is just let it go. I don't know yet if I'll let it, I'm not sure. No, we wouldn't do that. We would let it go. So put it in that context, it'll be easier. Hare Krishna. And now it's time for japa. And I am going to excuse myself for a moment, but I will be back. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada,